The major climate vulnerabilities threatening the food and livelihood security of the rural poor are scanty and uneven distribution of rainfall, prolonged dry spells, poor recharge of shallow aquifers and waterlogging due to high-intensity storm events. To address these climate vulnerabilities, the Indian Council of Agricultural Research (ICAR) launched the National Initiative on Climate Resilient Agriculture project in 2011. The NICRA project is jointly steered by the NRM and extension divisions of ICAR. The NICRA project is coordinated at the national level by Central Research Institute for Dryland Agriculture, CREDA. The technology demonstration component of NICRA is being implemented across 121 districts spread across 28 states and 1 union territory. These districts were identified based on their vulnerability to different climatic stresses such as droughts, floods, cyclones, heat and cold wave. Climate resilient interventions are implemented in 4 major modules: Natural Resource Management (NRM), Crop Production, Livestock and Fisheries, and Institutional Interventions. The technology demonstrations were implemented through 121 Krishi Vigyan Kendras (KVKs) with the support of 11 Agricultural Technology Application Research Institutes (ATARIs) and state agricultural universities. NICRA village clusters are identified based on the climatic vulnerability and appropriate technologies were demonstrated. NRM interventions related to in-situ moisture conservation, water harvesting and recycling for supplemental irrigation, recharge structure for open well, improved drainage in flood-prone areas and efficient water management methods like direct seeded rice, field punding were demonstrated. In soybean, ridge and furrow planting and sowing across the slope with short duration variety JS9560 was demonstrated. Adoption of broadbed planting system and use of bed planter was promoted for improved rainwater conservation and better drainage in black soils of central India. Runoff leads to loss of fertile topsoil from agricultural fields. Hence, the trench cum bunding was demonstrated. Land shaping technology was demonstrated in Nimpith, West Bengal to reduce submergence of kharif crops. Contour cultivation and bunding helped in reducing soil erosion as well as runoff. On-farm water storage structures were promoted as a key intervention. Integration of farm ponds with suitable cropping modules minimized the risk of crop failure in NICRA villages. Plastic lining of farm ponds prevented loss of water through seepage and increased water use efficiency and productivity. Low-cost structures known as jalkunds were demonstrated in high rainfall hilly areas for rainwater harvesting and raising high-value crops. Check dams were constructed for water storage recharged open wells and bore wells. This provided an opportunity for critical irrigation during dry spells. Significant increase in crop area during the Rabi season was observed. As a low-cost alternative, Bori bandaras were constructed using sand-filled plastic bags as temporary water storage structures. By this intervention, the irrigation during Rabi and summer seasons was made possible. Efficient use of harvested water through drip irrigation facilitated supplemental irrigation to cope with prolonged dry spells.
આપણે પહેલે તો એમને ધોળિયા પાડાથી કપાસ ઉગાડતા, એનથી પાણી વધારે જોતું, પછી એમાં પાણી પૂરું થતું નહીં, 1 એકડ જ પીવે, તો 5 એકર પાવું હોય તો ન પીવે. તો આપણે પહેલે તો ડ્રીપ નિકરા પ્રોજેક્ટથી ડ્રીપ કરાવી, પછી તેમાં સારો ફાયદો થયો એવો, તો પછી આનામાં પણ ડ્રીપ કરાવી. તો આમાં 3.5 એકરમાં કપાસ છે. તો એ કપાસ 1 થી 1.25 કલાક જેવું પાણી છે તો પૂરેપૂરું એટલામાં પી જાય. સ્ટેપ બાય સ્ટેપ હલાવીએ છીએ એમાં. તો એમાં તો પહેલો ફાયદો તો એ થયો, પાણી ઓછું અને કપાસ વધારે થાય છે.
Mulching was demonstrated for reducing the impact of dry spells. Arhars and pines enhance resilience through reduction in flood duration and improvement in conveyance efficiency. In Nikra villages, defunct water harvesting structures were identified and desilted with farmers' participation to enhance water storage. In view of aberrant monsoon conditions, contingency crops were demonstrated in 50 Nikra KVKs in states vulnerable to drought. Contingency crops for late planting, including soil moisture and nutrient management measures in standing crops experiencing dry spells, were taken up at several locations. Resilient crop interventions were introduced to stabilize productivity under variable climatic stresses. Cultivation of short duration and high yielding varieties enabled farmers to cope with shortened growing season due to late arrival of monsoon and delayed plantings. Contingent crops like soybean, sesame and groundnut were found to be promising for the delayed onset of monsoon in Datia. Drought-tolerant hybrids of castor, makka and moth bean were demonstrated in more than 200 farmers' fields of Balot in Kutch district of Gujarat. Soil test-based integrated manure and fertilizer use was taken up in Nikra villages. Village-level carbon balance estimated under Nikra, which enabled identification of resilient practices that contribute to carbon sequestration. Hormonal sprays of NAA at flowering stage contributed to better retention of flowers and fruits in Alfonso mango. Intercropping system of maize with soybean and black gram were demonstrated in the perennially drought-affected districts of Rajasthan. Intercropping of cotton, pigeon pea, groundnut and millets was more profitable and a key drought coping strategy across the dryland regions. Cultivation of flood-tolerant varieties of paddy enabled farmers to cope with flood situation and stabilize production. Short-duration paddy varieties for post-flood situation such as Luit and Ranjit were popularized to improve the productivity. In Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh, zero-till sowing of wheat was demonstrated for timely sowing to avoid the terminal heat stress. Cultivation of high-value vegetables in polyhouse was demonstrated to reduce the impact of high-intensity rains in hilly regions of Himachal Pradesh.
ये पोली हाउस लगाया है, ये निकरा के तहत लगाया गया था, तो इससे बहुत फ़ायदा हुआ है. बेमौसमी सब्जियां उगाई हमने इससे, तो टमाटर उगाया है, फिर शिमला मिर्च, गोभी वगैरह, तो इससे बहुत फ़ायदा हुआ. और पिछले साल भी कोई 70,000 की बेची है. तो मैं किसानों को यही सलाह देना चाहूँगा कि पॉली हाउस लगाएं. बाहर खेती करने से अच्छा है कि पॉली हाउस में खेती की जाए. इससे समय भी कम लगता है और खेती भी अच्छी होती है.
Improved machinery was demonstrated for efficient residue recycling and increased crop yield. Mushroom cultivation was promoted for additional income generation. Pomegranate was introduced as a substitute of apple in view of reduced chilling temperatures. Summer moong cultivation was demonstrated for improvement of soil health in rice wheat system. Introduction of salt-tolerant paddy variety WGL44 yielded 10 to 15% more than the farmer's practice. Green manuring in situ with dhencha increased yield of paddy besides reducing the cost of fertilizer use by 20%. Drum seeding was promoted as a contingency measure which facilitated late sowing of rice under delayed onset of monsoon. Aerobic rice cultivation with drought-tolerant variety MAS-26 was demonstrated. In case of delay in monsoon or shortage of water, direct seeded rice with suitable duration variety avoided the loss in yield. Community paddy nurseries were demonstrated in districts of Bihar and Jharkhand for delayed onset of monsoon conditions. Interventions on livestock and fisheries sectors involve utilizing common pool resources (CPRs) for fodder production during weather aberrations, augmentation of fodder availability during lean period, prophylaxis measures for prevention of endemic diseases, improved shelter for reducing thermal stress in livestock, improved heat stress tolerant livestock and poultry breeds, management of fish pond and promotion of improved breeds of livestock as adaptation strategy. Livestock interventions are demonstrated for enhancing adaptation gains and imparting resilience. Breed upgradation at village level boosted the productivity of livestock and poultry. Introduction of stress-tolerant indigenous breeds was successful in building the proportion of resilient stock at the village level in non-traditional areas. Availability of fodder is a challenge in the dryland areas, especially in drought years and during summer. Hence, year-round fodder production systems with sorghum, lucerne, herseem and multi-cut fodder varieties are introduced in Nikra villages. Promotion of silage units ensured supply of nutritious green fodder. Farmers were trained on use of area-specific mineral mixtures to mitigate nutrient deficiencies, which improved reproductive health and milk yield in dairy animals.
ये मिनरल मिक्सचर है, इसको हम रोज़ाना 50 ग्राम एक पशु के लिए देते हैं और इससे क्या है कि उसके खाने का जो सिस्टम है वो भी अच्छा हुआ है और दूध भी पशु का तकरीबन ये मानो कि आप 10 लीटर वाला पशु 12 लीटर दूध देने लग गया.
Animal sheds with misting facility during high temperatures of summer and gunny back cover during winter maintained congenial microclimate and improved the productivity. Farmers adopted rearing birds of Vanaraj breed with low-cost housing. The practice reduced mortality, enhanced weight gain and egg production. The composite fish farming practice with major carps and exotic carps, which is Katla, Rohu, Mrigal, silver carp, grass carp and common carp, respectively in the ratio of 20:20, 15:20, 10:15, using harvested rainwater gave an additional income to the farmers. Integrated duck and fish farming with low-cost duck shades using locally available materials have been adopted by the farmers after seeing its positive impact on income. To prevent fish escape and entry of predator fish during flood from the ponds, nylon net was promoted in flood-prone areas. Village Climate Risk Management Committee (VCRMC), Establishment and Management of Custom Hiring Center (CHC) for farm implements, seed bank, fodder bank, creation of commodity groups, water sharing groups, community nursery, etc. are important components of the institutional interventions of the project. Recognizing the need for establishment of enabling support systems for participatory decision making and wider adoption of climate resilient agriculture practices, and also build capacities at the local level. Village climate risk management committees were formed. Timely sowing enabled to maximize benefit in variable climates. Custom hiring centers were started in each NICRA village to meet various farm machinery needs of the communities and to support various natural resource management interventions.
वो जब सामान एक है वो मांगने वाले कहेंगे तो एक को ही मिल पाएगा सब, उस तरीके से काम चलाते हैं इसका। बाकी इससे फ़ायदा तो काफ़ी है कस्टमर हायरिंग से।
A network of automatic weather station enabled outreach of climate services to farmers in the form of agro-advisories. Weather stations established in NICRA villages promoted climate awareness and literacy among farmers. Availability of quality seed is an issue, and seed banks were created to provide quality seed of resilient crop varieties to farmers in NICRA villages. To fulfill the requirement of the green fodder in NICRA villages during off-season and drought, Fodder Bank was established under NICRA project. Training programs on climate-resilient agriculture practices and technologies help to create awareness on climate-related issues among farmers and all stakeholders. Women's groups came forward to manage the millet processing unit for supply of healthy flour and benefits of collective marketing for higher returns for their produce. Women's groups came forward to establish and manage protected community vegetable nursery for supply of healthy seedlings in high rainfall areas and demonstrated the benefits of collective marketing for higher returns. All NICRA implementing KVKs established convergence which brought synergies among different government schemes. Zonal monitoring committees were constituted to review the technical progress and for making appropriate suggestions for improvement. Increasing climate variability adversely impacting farmers' income and livelihood from agriculture. The NICRA project identified successful practices for climate resilience in agriculture